She left without warning. No fight. No explanation. Just a slow, calculated silence that wrapped itself around your days like fog. At first you thought it was temporary. Maybe she needed space. Maybe something was off in her life. You gave her the benefit of the doubt because that's what real men do. But as the days turned to weeks, her silence became an echo, and that echo started to shape your thoughts. You saw her posting again, looking radiant, surrounded by distractions, pretending as if nothing had ever happened between you. It wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say. No closure, no goodbye, just the sound of a door closing in slow motion, and deep down it stung. It's not because she left, but because she expected you to break. She thought her absence would unmake you, but something inside. You woke up instead. Not rage, not revenge. Something quieter, stronger. You stopped checking your phone. You stopped wondering what she was thinking. You started showing up for yourself, and that's when everything flipped. Now she's watching. From afar, behind fake calm and rehearsed smiles, because the moment you stopped needing her was the moment she realized she had something worth missing. And it's too late now, because you're not chasing, you're rising. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. She didn't slam the door. She left it slightly ajar, just enough to keep you wondering if she might come back. Her texts got colder. The energy shifted. Her voice lost its warmth. The laughter you once shared was replaced with a polite silence. But still, you stayed calm. You didn't demand answers. You didn't chase clarity, because part of you already understood. This wasn't about something you did. This was about something she needed to feel. Power, control, validation. She needed to feel like she could pull away and still have your full attention, that her absence would make your world collapse. But you didn't collapse. You simply stood there, present, composed, observant, and she mistook your stillness for blindness. She thought you didn't notice the shift. She thought your silence meant weakness. But real men don't react to every tremor. They wait for the full earthquake before they move. And in that waiting, something stronger started to build inside you. A quiet refusal to be pulled out of your center. You weren't playing games. You were holding your ground. And that's what she didn't expect. Because most men chase when things begin to fade. But you just let her walk. And that's when the regret began. Not in her words, but in her watching. Her silence wasn't an accident. It was a move, a strategy, a quiet test wrapped in distance, designed to provoke a reaction. Because for some women, pulling away isn't about needing space. It's about needing proof. Proof that they still have power over you. Proof that if they leave, you'll follow, you'll chase, you'll panic. She wanted to see the crack in your confidence, to watch you scramble, to feel wanted, not through connection, but through control. And most men fail this test. They react. They reach out with trembling fingers, asking what's wrong. They write long messages, offering apologies for things they didn't even do. They try to explain, to fix, to hold on. But you didn't. You stood still. You let her silence echo, without filling it with your own noise. That quiet unnerved her, because in her game she held the remote. But you refused to be the screen. She thought the silence would make you small. But it made you clear. It clarified who you are, what you will and won't accept. And most importantly, it showed her that your worth isn't defined by her attention. She left the door open, expecting you to rush through. Instead, you built a new door, and you locked it from the inside. Now, she's the one watching, wondering, rethinking every move. Because in a world full of men who react, you became the man who didn't. She didn't leave because you were too much. She left because she couldn't control how grounded you were becoming, because somewhere between the comfort and the quiet moments, she began to feel something she didn't expect. Vulnerability. Not yours. Hers. You didn't need her to complete you. You never begged for her affection. That scared her more than she'd admit, because most men crave approval and she's used to holding that power. But you were different. That difference forced her to confront something uncomfortable. She was no longer in charge of the emotional rhythm, so she pulled away, not to escape you, but to escape the mirror you held up. A mirror that showed her she couldn't control you, and more importantly, that her games wouldn't work here. Underneath the silence was fear. The fear that she might not be enough for a man who doesn't chase. That if you didn't beg her to stay, then maybe, just maybe, you actually could walk away. With dignity, with strength, with self-respect still intact. So she crafted distance. She acted like she needed time. But what she really needed was to feel in control again. And when she saw you weren't folding, when she realized her pullback wasn't shaking your world, she felt the first tremor of regret. She didn't lose you because you changed. She lost you because you didn't, because you remained rooted, unmoved, clear dot, and now, the one who pulled away is slowly turning back. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't flinch. This is where most men fall, not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught the strength of stillness. The moment she starts pulling away, they panic. They sense the emotional shift, and instead of grounding themselves, they try to solve her. They chase her with words, with questions, with explanations she never asked for. They send texts at midnight hoping for closure. They call twice, then 3 times, thinking maybe the third ring will make her remember. They post just enough to be noticed, but not enough to look desperate. They walk the tightrope of trying not to look like they're chasing while secretly hoping she'll see. But here's the truth. Every message sent from anxiety, every move made from fear, only confirms her power. And in her mind, the man she once admired, he begins to shrink. Not because she wanted him to fail, but because he gave away the very thing that made him magnetic. His center, his calm, his mystery. You didn't do that. You didn't trade your dignity for attention. You didn't turn love into negotiation. You didn't beg her to see your worth. You showed it, right? By staying still. And that's where the real reversal began. Because the more silent you became, the louder her thoughts grew. The more you held your frame, the more she questioned hers. A man who doesn't fold under pressure is dangerous. Not because he's aggressive, but because he's unshakable. And when you refused to chase, you didn't lose her. You made her lose the illusion she had of you. Now that illusion is cracking in what's underneath. It's the man she never thought she'd regret losing. She'll never say it out loud. She might not even admit it to herself. But deep down, she wanted you to hold the line. Not with anger, not with indifference, with quiet strength. She needed to feel that if she walked away, your world wouldn't collapse. That you had a center she couldn't shake. Because in that stability, in that grounded silence, she would finally feel the masculine energy she craved but couldn't name. She didn't want your explanations. She didn't need you to fight for her attention. What she wanted, what she hoped for, was to feel the weight of your presence even in your absence. When she created space, she hoped you wouldn't rush to fill it, that you would respect yourself enough to let her go. And that maybe, just maybe, she'd realize she made a mistake. She wanted to feel like you were a man who could walk away. Not because you didn't care, but because you cared about yourself more. And you gave her that. You didn't react. You reflected. You didn't chase. You chose silence. Not as punishment, but as presence. And now that presence is haunting her thoughts. Because every man before you broke. They folded. They begged. They turned love into pursuit. But you chose the opposite. You chose dignity. And in doing so, you gave her exactly what she never thought she needed, the consequences of walking away from a man who knows who he is. Now she's remembering everything. The way you looked at her without needing her. The way you listened without trying to fix her. The way you stayed silent. And somehow said everything. At first, she thought you were just giving her space. A pause. A momentary ego bruise. She expected a comeback, a reach out, a late-night message asking, "Are you okay?" But that message never came. The silence that once comforted her pride started echoing back with questions she couldn't answer. You didn't disappear. In anger, You simply faded from her world. No drama, no performance. You just stopped showing up, and it unsettled her. She began checking your stories not to respond, but to feel something. She asked mutual friends how you were doing, not out of care, but curiosity. Because silence isn't just absence. It's a mirror. And when a man goes silent with purpose, he forces a woman to see her reflection more clearly than ever. You weren't ignoring her. You were honoring yourself. And now, without lifting a finger, you've done what desperate words never could. You've made her feel your worth. It's not because you posted about your progress, but because you lived it. Quietly, steadily, unshaken, and suddenly. The dynamic changed. Now she's wondering if you've moved on, if someone else has your attention, if she was just a page. And your story kept writing itself long after she left. That's what shook her. Not the silence itself, but the strength inside that silence. Because silence from weakness fades. But silence from power? It grows louder with every passing day. Now she's watching you like a ghost, searching for the doorway back. But what she doesn't know is, you've already walked through it, and you're not looking over your shoulder. There comes a moment she never thought would arrive. Not when she left, not when she posted, not even when she convinced herself that you were just another man. It came later, quietly, unexpectedly. She was scrolling through her phone, maybe alone in her room. Maybe after someone else left her feeling a little too empty. And there you were, not in her inbox, not in her arms, but in her memory, in her regrets. Not because you begged, not because you proved your worth, but because you never needed. 2. You became the man who let her go with grace, with stillness, with dignity. And that changed everything. You didn't collapse. You evolved. You didn't wait. You grew. And that growth was louder than any words you could have spoken. Now she sees it. Not just the man you were, but the man she never truly understood. She underestimated your silence. Now, it's the one thing she can't escape. Her regret doesn't look like tears or grand gestures. It's smaller than that. It's the hesitation before she texts. It's the way her heart drops when she sees your name and knows. She can't reach you anymore. Not really, because you've shifted. She can still see your face, but not your focus. You're elsewhere now. Not angry, not bitter, just beyond. Her, you didn't win by outplaying her. You won by outgrowing the entire game, and in the end, she didn't lose a man who needed her. She lost a man she couldn't replace. Because now she knows the truth. You're not just attractive, you're unforgettable. Some men beg, some men chase, but you. You chose to become something she never saw coming, unreachable, not because you vanished, but because you rose. And rising isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It's quiet. How you carry yourself when no one's watching, it's the peace you find when you stop explaining yourself. When you stop needing to be understood by those who chose to misunderstand you. She thought walking away would make her feel powerful. But your silence. That's what truly echoed. You didn't become colder. You became clearer. You didn't disappear to make her miss you. You disappeared to find yourself again, and now she watches, wishing for another chance. But you've already stepped into a life that doesn't revolve around being chosen. Because you chose yourself. And that is what makes you unforgettable. So, keep walking. Keep growing. Don't look back, because the man you're becoming, he doesn't chase, he leads. The world will feel it, even if she never admits it. Because when you stop reacting, you start becoming. And that changes everything.